The hidden signal. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her fingers against her temples as the headache returned. For 3 weeks now, the Deep Space Monitoring Station had been picking up something impossible, a rhythmic pulse emanating from Earth's core, growing stronger each day. Still getting those readings? Marcus Chen asked, sliding into the chair beside her. The young technician looked as tired as she felt, dark circles under his eyes from weeks of overtime. Elena nodded, pointing at the screen. Look at this pattern. It's not random geological activity. This is structured, almost like a heartbeat, Marcus finished. I've been thinking the same thing. The pulse appeared on their instruments as a deep blue wave, thrumming through Earth's mantle in perfect intervals. What disturbed Elena most wasn't the signal itself, but what had happened to the listening posts scattered throughout their sector of the galaxy. The silent posts. 12 monitoring stations, Elena muttered, bringing up the star map. All of them focused on our solar system. All of them went dark within 48 hours of this signal starting. Marcus leaned forward. You think they're connected? I don't think, I know. These weren't equipment failures. These posts just stopped. No final transmissions, no distress calls. They went silent like someone flipped a switch. Elena had spent years studying alien archaeology, but this was different. The monitoring posts belonged to various species, some they'd never even made contact with. Yet all of them had been watching Earth from a distance, never approaching, never making themselves known. The ancient fear. That evening, Elena sat alone in her apartment, staring at classified files she probably shouldn't have accessed. References to the Silent Watchers appeared in fragments of alien communications they'd intercepted over the decades. Never full conversations, just whispers. One translation particularly haunted her: the third world sleeps, but the dreams grow restless. Her tablet chimed with an incoming message from Marcus. Elena, you need to see this. I've been analyzing the signal's frequency. It matches something. The attached file made her blood run cold. The signal perfectly matched brainwave patterns, specifically, the patterns of someone emerging from deep sleep. The growing awareness. Back at the station, Elena and Marcus worked through the night, piecing together fragments of data. The picture that emerged terrified them. Earth isn't just sending out a signal, Elena whispered. It's responding to something. Something approaching from deep space. Marcus pulled up gravitational readings. There's a mass moving toward our sector. It's enormous. And it's been heading this way for months. But why now? Elena asked. What changed? As if in answer, the Earth's pulse quickened. The blue wave on their screen intensified, and somewhere far below their feet, something ancient stirred in response to a call from across the stars. The first contact. 3 days later, Elena received a transmission that would change everything. It wasn't from Earth or any human facility. The signal came from the edge of their solar system, a simple message in broken English. Warning. Do not wake the sleepers. The galaxy is not ready. We have watched for millennia. Now we must speak. Elena stared at the message, her hands shaking. The Silent Watchers weren't silent anymore. After countless ages of observation, they had finally broken their silence. And they sounded afraid. The signal from Earth's core pulsed again, stronger than before, and Elena realized that humanity was about to learn why the galaxy's oldest civilizations had spent millions of years pretending Earth didn't exist. Dr. Kai Nakamura felt the tremor before his instruments registered it. Deep beneath the Japanese Alps, something was shifting. The underground research facility had been built to study tectonic activity, but what he was seeing now defied every geological principle he knew. This can't be right, he muttered, staring at the seismic readings. The tremors weren't random, they formed patterns, like Morse code written in earthquakes. And they were spreading, following ley lines that shouldn't exist according to modern science. Halfway around the world, Dr. Zara al-Rashid was having her own crisis of understanding. The linguistics professor had been called to examine strange symbols appearing on ancient stone tablets worldwide. The symbols weren't carved, they were glowing, emerging from within the stone itself as if the rock remembered something humanity had forgotten. "Professor, you need to see this," her assistant called out. "The tablets in Syria, Egypt, and Peru, they're all displaying the same sequence now." Zara studied the glowing symbols. Her breath caught as she recognized fragments from dead languages, words that hadn't been spoken for thousands of years. But somehow, she could read them. The knowledge felt like it was bubbling up from somewhere deep inside her mind. "The children of flame stir in their sleep," she translated, her voice barely a whisper. "The watchers prepare to flee." Around the world, people began experiencing what doctors called ancestral emergence syndrome. A construction worker in Brazil suddenly spoke fluent ancient Sumerian. A teacher in Norway drew complex mathematical equations she'd never learned, formulas that described impossible physics. Children born in the last 5 years displayed abilities that made their parents weep with fear and wonder. Kai's instruments detected another shift. This time, the tremor came from directly below the facility. Something vast was moving beneath them, something that had been dormant for ages. The walls around him began to hum with a frequency he felt in his bones. "Evacuation protocol," he announced to his team, but even as he said it, he knew it was too late. The facility's lights flickered, and in that moment of darkness, Kai saw something impossible. The rock walls had become transparent, revealing a chamber far below filled with structures that couldn't be natural. Zara was experiencing her own revelation. As she touched the glowing symbols, memories that weren't hers flooded her mind. She saw Earth as it once was, not a world of separate continents, but a single landmass surrounding something that pulsed with unnatural life. Cities that defied gravity. People who commanded reality with their thoughts alone. And she saw the war. The terrible war that had torn the galaxy apart, where Earth's children had fought something from the void between stars. She saw them lose, saw them sealed away, their power scattered and buried beneath layers of time and forgetting. The government response was swift but confused. Satellite imagery showed energy signatures emerging from 7 points around the globe. Military advisors spoke in hushed tones about containment scenarios and population management protocols. But their weapons were designed for human conflicts, not for whatever was stirring beneath their feet. In a secure bunker beneath Colorado, General Harrison watched feeds from around the world. "How many affected?" he asked. "Conservative estimate? 3 million worldwide," his aide replied. People displaying enhanced cognitive abilities, speaking unknown languages, showing signs of other capabilities. "Other capabilities? Sir, we have reports of individuals manipulating electromagnetic fields, demonstrating precognitive awareness, and in some cases." The aide paused, affecting local gravity. Kai stood in the abandoned facility, no longer afraid. The knowledge flowing through him felt like coming home. He understood now that the tremors weren't earthquakes, they were Earth itself stretching, yawning, preparing to remember what it truly was. Zara found herself at the center of a growing circle of awakened individuals. They hadn't planned to gather, hadn't been summoned by any human agency. They simply knew where to go, drawn by instincts older than civilization. "It's not just us," Zara said to the others. "The Watchers in space, they've been keeping something from approaching Earth. But their vigil is failing." Above them, the first alien vessel in human history dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. It broadcast no greeting, no demand for surrender. Instead, it transmitted a single, desperate plea: please remain dormant. The galaxy cannot survive your awakening. But Earth had already begun to stir, and the children of flame were remembering who they used to be. Commander Thelvar had lived for 3,000 years, long enough to remember the stories the elders whispered in the deepest chambers of their ships. Stories of a war that had nearly torn reality apart, of a species so powerful they had to be buried beneath layers of time itself. Now, as his vessel approached the forbidden system,
he felt the same terror his ancestors had known. "Signal the human settlement," he ordered, his crystalline voice echoing through the bridge. "Use their primitive electromagnetic frequencies." Dr. Sarah Mitchell was working late in the xenobiology lab when the transmission came through. She'd been analyzing tissue samples from the awakened individuals, samples that defied everything science understood about human DNA. The genetic sequences showed impossible complexity, as if human biology was just the surface layer of something far more intricate. The alien voice that crackled through her speakers spoke in heavily accented English. "Human scientist, we must speak. Time grows short." Sarah's hands trembled as she responded. "This is Dr. Sarah Mitchell. Who are you?" "I am Thelvar of the Kytherian Collective. We have watched your world for 40,000 of your years. We come now because the containment is failing." Within hours, Sarah found herself aboard an alien vessel unlike anything humanity had imagined. The ship seemed grown rather than built, its organic curves pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Commander Thelvar stood nearly 8 feet tall, his skin resembling living crystal that shifted between blue and silver. "Your species calls this world Earth," Thelvar said, gesturing to a holographic display showing their planet from space. "But its true name, the name spoken by the eldest civilizations, is Ethros, the prison world." Sarah stared at the display, watching as energy patterns became visible beneath Earth's surface, forming a complex network that spanned the entire globe. Prison for what? For what humanity once was. Thelvar's expression grew somber. "Before the flesh, before the forgetting, your people were beings of pure thought and energy. They commanded matter itself, bent space and time to their will. They built an empire that spanned galaxies." The display changed, showing vast fleets of ships that seemed made of crystallized starlight, cities floating in the void between worlds, beings of impossible beauty reshaping reality with their thoughts. "But power without wisdom breeds catastrophe. Your ancestors encountered something in the deep void, an entity that feeds on consciousness itself, a hunger that devours thoughts and dreams. In their arrogance they tried to fight it alone." Sarah watched in horror as the display showed the war. Entire star systems consumed by creeping darkness, worlds stripped not just of life but of the possibility of life. The beings of light fought desperately, but their enemy was something that predated existence itself. "They lost," Thelvar continued. "But in losing they saved the galaxy. At the cost of their own transcendence, they sealed themselves in flesh, buried their power beneath layers of mortality. We, the elder races, helped complete the prison. We wrapped your world in fields that would keep you dormant, keep you human." "And now?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "Now the seals weaken. The entity they fought, the devourer, stirs again in the deep void. It has learned patience and it remembers the taste of Earth's power. It comes and your people begin to remember what they truly are." Back on Earth, the awakening accelerated. Kai Nakamura stood in the ruins of his facility, watching as structures of impossible geometry emerged from the rock itself. They weren't built. They had always been there, waiting beneath the surface of perceived reality. Zara al-Rashid found herself speaking languages that predated human civilization, her words reshaping the air around her into visible patterns of meaning. The other awakened gathered around her as she translated messages appearing in the alien structures. "The Watchers speak truly," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the ground vibrate. "We were the flame that burned too bright. We were scattered into flesh and forgetting to save the galaxy from our war." Above them, more alien ships appeared, not just Kytherians but vessels from dozens of species. All of them maintaining a careful distance from Earth, all of them broadcasting the same desperate message: "Do not wake. The enemy comes." But the messages fell on deaf ears. In 7 locations around the globe, ancient devices had begun their activation sequence. Each pulse sent waves of energy through Earth's core, awakening systems that had slept since before the pyramids were built. Sarah stood on Thelvar's bridge, watching her world transform. What happens when we fully awaken? The Kytherian commander's crystalline skin darkened to deep purple, a sign of profound sorrow among his people. Then you become what you were before, beings of infinite power and finite wisdom. And the devourer will sense you across the galaxy. It will come, and this time, there may be no escape. What if we choose differently? Sarah asked. What if we remember but don't repeat the same mistakes? Thelvar looked at her with something that might have been hope. That, human child, is the question that has kept us watching for 40,000 years. Can the flame learn to burn without consuming everything around it? On Earth's surface, the first tower broke through the ground in Siberia, its emergence sending shockwaves through the planet's magnetic field. The awakening had passed the point of no return.
Alex Rivera had been a park ranger just 3 days ago. Now he stood in what used to be Yellowstone National Park, watching geysers of pure energy erupt from the earth in perfect geometric patterns. The transformation had begun with dreams, visions of soaring through star-filled voids, commanding fleets of living ships, wielding forces that could reshape matter itself. The awakening hit him like lightning. One moment he was checking trail markers, the next he was floating 3 feet above the ground, his consciousness expanded beyond anything human experience could contain. He wasn't alone, thousands of others worldwide felt the same explosive return of memory. "We were never meant to be trapped in these shells," Alex whispered, his voice carrying across miles without the need for sound. Around him, the landscape itself responded to his thoughts, rock and tree bending into impossible spirals of beauty. Far across the galaxy, Elder Mordun of the Galactic Council received the reports with growing horror. Fleet after fleet of monitoring vessels had gone silent as Earth's energy signature blazed brighter than most stars. The readings were unmistakable, the seals that had contained humanity's true nature for millennia were cracking like eggshells. "Evacuation protocols for all systems within 50 light-years," Mordun ordered, his ancient voice heavy with exhaustion. "And send word to the Deep Watchers, tell them the flame awakens." On Earth, the changes accelerated beyond any government's ability to control or understand. Military bases found their weapons systems completely inert, not damaged but simply ignored by the laws of physics. Nuclear missiles refused to detonate. Electronic surveillance equipment showed only patterns of impossible beauty where once there had been recognizable landscapes. In major cities, people gathered in spontaneous groups, their individual consciousnesses beginning to merge into something larger. They spoke in unison without planning, their combined thoughts creating visible auroras in broad daylight. Traffic stopped not because roads were blocked, but because the need for primitive transportation was becoming obsolete. Zahra al-Rashid stood at the center of one such gathering in Cairo. The awakened around her numbered in the thousands, their combined presence causing the Great Pyramid to resonate like a struck bell. Ancient hieroglyphs along its surface glowed with renewed purpose, revealing their true meaning, not prayers to gods, but technical specifications for reality-altering devices. "We remember now," Zahra announced, her words reaching every awakened consciousness simultaneously. "We were explorers once, children of stars and void. We built wonders that made galaxies tremble with envy. The memories flooded back in waves. Cities that floated in hyperspace. Art forms that used living nebulae as canvas. Technologies that converted pure thought into physical matter. And at the center of it all, the terrible pride that had led to their downfall." Alex Rivera felt the presence of others like him across the globe. In Japan, Kai Nakamura had become something more than human, his consciousness merged with the tectonic forces beneath the islands. In Brazil, a former teacher now commanded weather patterns with her thoughts. In Antarctica, researchers had discovered they could phase in and out of normal spacetime. But with the memories came the knowledge of what they had lost, and what was coming for them. The Devourer had been waiting in the deep void between galaxies, patient as entropy itself. It had learned from their last encounter. This time, it wouldn't make the mistake of direct confrontation. Instead, it sent tendrils of nothingness ahead of it, probes that turned matter into void and consciousness into eternal silence. The first probe reached the outer edge of the solar system on a Tuesday. Pluto simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, but edited out of reality as if it had never been. The effect spread inward like spilled ink, consuming Neptune's outer moons, leaving behind regions of space where even the concept of existence had been revoked. Elder Mordun watched the readings with cold terror. How long before it reaches Earth? His science chief consulted instruments that operated on principles beyond physical matter. At current rate of consumption, 17 of their days. On Earth, the awakened felt the approaching nothingness like a cold wind against their souls. Alex Rivera stood on what had once been a mountain, now transformed into a spire of crystallized intention. He could sense his fellow awakened across the planet, their individual consciousness beginning to merge into something unprecedented. We failed before because we fought alone, he realized, his thoughts instantly shared with millions of others. This time, we fight as one. The 7 towers that had emerged from Earth's crust began to pulse in perfect synchronization. Each pulse sent waves of structured energy through the planet's core, awakening systems that had slumbered since before the first cells crawled from primordial seas. Earth itself was remembering its purpose, not as a world, but as a vast mechanism designed to contain and focus the power of an entire transcendent species. Zara felt the planet's consciousness touch her own, ancient and vast beyond comprehension. "We are ready," the world whispered. "The question is, are you?" Around the globe, the awakened made their choice. They could flee, scatter to distant stars and hide as their ancestors had tried to do. Or they could stand and face the devourer, but this time with the wisdom earned through millennia of mortality. The probe reached Jupiter, and the gas giant folded inward on itself, becoming a wound in space where nothing could exist. The effect was accelerating. Alex looked up at stars that seemed suddenly fragile, temporary things. "We were children when we fought before," he said to the collective consciousness of his species. "Now let's see what we've learned as mortals."